Story number 1. A haunting in Dublin, Ireland. I've always considered myself to be quite open-minded when it comes to the supernatural. As a result, I find great enjoyment in indulging in a good ghost story, just like any other person would. Today I want to share with you an extraordinary encounter that took place in County Dublin, the Republic of Ireland, over 20 years ago. This particular incident remains etched in my memory, constantly leaving me pondering over the authenticity of what I experienced. You see, I've had minimal exposure to what might consider to be the supernatural, making this encounter all the more perplexing and captivating. It began when the girl I was seeing at the time reached out to me with an exciting proposition. She informed me that her parents would be out of town for the entire weekend, leaving the house completely vacant. Moreover, she extended a heartfelt invitation to spend the weekend alone with her at her parents' house. Being the typical teenage boy, I didn't require a second invitation. Without wasting any time, we found ourselves nestled in the comfort of her bedroom, relishing in each other's company. However, our passion and bliss was abruptly interrupted by the unmistakable sound. It was the distinct echo of footsteps ascending the stairs. Startled, I sprang up from bed, blurting out something along the lines of, "Wait, I thought your parents were gone for the weekend." To my surprise, she reassured me that her parents were indeed away and casually dismissed the fact that we had both distinctively heard heavy footsteps approaching the room. Strange occurrences like these continued to unfold throughout the day, further adding to the perplexity of the situation. One incident that stands out vividly in my mind occurred while I was walking past her room en route to the bathroom. As I passed by, something caught my eye, causing me to pause in awe. All the windows in the room had been flung open, and the curtains danced wildly in the air, as if caught in the midst of a raging hurricane. Strangely enough, I could have sworn that those very same windows had been securely shut during my initial walk past the room. Could it have been a trick, or was there something more at play? I couldn't be certain, and I tried to convince myself that my observations could be attributed to a logical explanation. Perhaps I'd simply misremembered the state of the windows. After all, our minds can play tricks on us, right? At this point, despite the peculiar happenings, I wasn't particularly spooked. I chalked it up to a mere coincidence and refused to let fear take hold of me. I reassured myself that there must be a rational explanation for everything I had witnessed thus far. Little did I know that my sense of security was about to be shattered. Sometime in the middle of the night, both my girlfriend and I were abruptly awakened from our slumber. Confusion washed over us as we exchanged bewildered glances, wondering what on earth was happening. I distinctly recall a profound, indescribable sensation that engulfed me, a potent amalgamation of dread, despair, and insatiable curiosity as well. It was as if the very air around us had become charged with an otherworldly energy. In the silence of the night, I detected faint movements emanating from downstairs, accompanied by hushed murmurs. It felt as though an invisible crowd had assembled in the kitchen, their presence palpable yet concealed from our sight. The muffled conversations reached our ears, but the words remained indiscernible. Unable to contain my mounting apprehension, I turned to my girlfriend, desperately seeking an explanation for this unnerving spectacle unfolding before us. To my astonishment, she responded calmly, as if this sort of occurrence was a regular part of her life. She nonchalantly mentioned that these inexplicable events were commonplace in her house. Her composure did little to alleviate my growing unease, but exhaustion eventually overcame my troubled mind, allowing me to drift back into a restless slumber. One additional detail that I might add to this already perplexing tale is that the house in question was part of a row of terraced houses. Coincidentally, the adjacent house had become the site of a heinous murder not long before my own supernatural encounter. From what I remember hearing in the news, a woman had suffered a brutal and grisly fate, yet no one had ever been held accountable for the crime. Although the husband was the primary subject, he managed to evade conviction due to some technicality. This tragedy has gripped the neighborhood, leaving an air of suspicion and unease lingering in the atmosphere. I often found myself contemplating whether this dreadful incident was in some way connected to the strange occurrences that I had witnessed. To this day, I'm left grappling with questions and uncertainties about the events that unfolded during that fateful weekend in County Dublin. The supernatural realm, with all its enigmas, has both fascinated and bewildered me. While I may never uncover the truth behind the footsteps, the window's mysterious opening, or the ethereal murmurs that echo through the house, this extraordinary experience has forever left an indelible mark on my psyche. It serves as a testament to the profound mysteries that lie just beyond the veil of our everyday reality, compelling me to explore the unknown and embrace the inexplicable. Story number 2. I had a dream of people I didn't meet until years later. I still remember that dream as if it happened yesterday, even though I can't pinpoint the exact year. It must have been around the time when I was 17 or 18, navigating the tumultuous path of adolescence. In the depths of my slumber, I found myself in a peculiar state of existence where the boundaries of reality were blurred and the concept of time seemed irrelevant. Within the confines of my dream, I was an older version of myself, although I couldn't quite determine my exact age. I found myself immersed in the bustling atmosphere of a charming cafe, surrounded by 7 other employees. Among us were 3 men, counting me, and 3 women, forming a tight-knit group of companions. The bonds we shared transcended mere friendship. We were like a chosen family, celebrating holidays together and reveling in the warmth of each other's company. It's difficult to explain how I knew all this, but the profound sense of love and connection was ingrained in every fiber of my being. However, like the ephemeral nature of dreams, this blissful existence abruptly came to an end. I awoke with a sense of inexplicable grief, as if I had truly lost these remarkable individuals who had come to mean so much to me. The aftermath of that dream haunted me for days, leaving me emotionally disarrayed. But burdened by embarrassment, I dared not share my turmoil with anyone. How could I possibly articulate the deep sorrow stemming from the loss of dream friends? It seems almost absurd, almost laughable. Years passed, and the memory of that dream gradually faded into the recesses of my mind. Life carried on, steering me through the ebb and flow. It wasn't until 4 or 5 years later that the vivid remnants of my dream resurfaced, triggered by an unexpected twist of fate. A dear friend of mine, aware of my flexible schedule, implored me to cover a shift at the cafe where he worked. Intrigued by the prospect of earning some extra cash and helping out a friend, I readily agreed. Little did I know that the seemingly innocent favor would catapult me into a surreal realm where dreams collided with reality. As I stepped foot inside the cafe, the initial encounter with the owner left me puzzled. There was an undeniable familiarity to his face, a sensation that tugged at the corners of my memory. It wasn't until the other employees arrived that the jigsaw pieces fell into place, fitting together with uncanny precision. The number of women, the number of men, everything matched exactly, and then it hit me like a bolt of lightning. These were the very same individuals from my dream. A rush of emotions engulfed me, rendering me motionless. My heart plummeted into the depths of my stomach, as if the very fabric of reality had unveiled before my eyes. Memories from that dream cascaded through my mind, flooding my consciousness with a torrent of nostalgia and longing. It was an overwhelming experience, akin to a tempestuous storm ravaging my soul. I wanted to cry and to scream to express the weight of this extraordinary revelation, But fear of being labeled insane held my tongue captive, and so I maintained a stoic facade, concealing the emotional maelstrom raging within me. Since that fateful day, my friend hasn't required my assistance in filling his shift at the cafe. Perhaps he sensed the seismic impact that it had on me, or maybe it was a mere coincidence. Regardless, I never mustered the courage to return, even as a mere customer. The fear of confronting the enigmatic intersection between dreams and reality proved too daunting, trapping me within the confines of what I knew to be safe and predictable. Yet in the depths of my heart, I can't help but wonder, what if I had embraced the uncertainty, defied the limits of rationality, and stepped back into that cafe? Would I have been able to rekindle the inexplicable bonds I forged in the realm of dreams? Alas, these questions will forever remain unanswered, buried beneath the layers of regret and what-ifs. And so I continued to traverse the intricacies of existence, forever haunted by the enigma of that dream turned reality, forever grappling with the ghosts of those dream friends I lost but never truly had. Story number 3. Auntie Mo's House, 1990s. When I was a child, I had the privilege of growing up in Grays Harbor, a beautiful area in Washington state. More specifically, my family and I resided in the charming town of Cosmopolis, while my aunt and her 3 children lived just a stone's throw away in Aberdeen, another neighboring town. During my early years, I lived happily with my mother and brother until the age of 7.5 or maybe 8, when circumstances led me to move in with my loving grandparents. It's within this backdrop that the events of this story unfolded, spanning a period of approximately 6 years. Now let me provide you with some context. My aunt, a skilled hairdresser, had recently moved into a new house that featured a spacious area in the back, perfectly suited for her own little salon. This house, a cozy single-story dwelling with 3 bedrooms and a solitary bathroom, became the center of my family gatherings. Across the street from my aunt's house, another aunt of mine, along with her 2 children, had also found a home. Interestingly, my older cousin, whom I'll refer to as Tina for the sake of privacy, often assumed the role of the babysitter for my other cousins. My Auntie Mo's kids as well as for me. Whenever the adults needed a break from our youthful exuberance, Tina would take charge, and since Aunt Mo's house was the most spacious and convenient, it became our default gathering place until our parents returned. Now let's delve into the backstory of this intriguing house. Prior to my aunt becoming its proud owner, it belonged to a man who had lived alone for quite some time following the passing of his beloved wife. Tragically, he had met his own demise within the confines of his closet. Concerned neighbors, realizing that they hadn't seen him for an extended period, decided to check on him, only to make the grisly discovery. The house remained unoccupied for years until finally my aunt seized the opportunity and purchased it. Initially, during the first few months of our occupancy, everything seemed relatively normal. However, once my aunt began the renovation process to transform the back room into her personal salon, strange occurrences began to unfold. It all started one night when my cousin Joe, the eldest among us, ventured out of bed to use the bathroom. To his horror, as he stood in the front of the sink, it inexplicably began turning on and off, seemingly of its own volition. This incident frightened him so profoundly that he adamantly refused to use the bathroom alone from that point forward. Unfortunately, this was merely the prelude to a series of increasingly eerie experiences that awaited us. Soon, we could hear distinct heavy boot steps emanating from the attic directly above us. Objects began to move inexplicably, defying the laws of physics. Even our faithful dog, usually so composed, would become agitated and bark fervently at the seemingly empty space. Moreover, we frequently felt peculiar sensations of someone gently touching the tops of our heads, reminiscent of the affectionate pat one might receive from a caring parent, relative, or friend. However, among the plethora of spine-chilling encounters, one incident in particular left an indelible mark on my memory. It transpired during the heart of winter, where Tina was responsible for babysitting the rest of us kids. Approximately an hour after her parents had departed, an unnerving sequence of events unfolded. The family dog found itself in the confines of the laundry room, with the door securely shut and locked. Suddenly, the canine began to behave erratically, seemingly perturbed by an unseen presence. To our astonishment and terror, the laundry room door swung open with force, prompting all of us children to unleash a collective scream of fright. Reacting swiftly, Tina rushed to the door, closed and locked it, before hurrying back to the living room where the rest of us huddled together. Inexplicably, no sooner had Tina rejoined us than we heard the distinct sound of the door lock being unlocked, followed by the door violently swinging open once more. This disconcerting cycle repeated itself several times, each iteration accompanied by our increasingly frantic dog. Unable to bear the mounting fear, Tina took the initiative to retrieve the dog from the kennel within the laundry room, and we all sought refuge across the street in her house for the remainder of our parents' absence. Needless to say, Aunt Mo's children displayed little enthusiasm about returning to their own home that night. Undoubtedly, this incident stood out as the most terrifying encounter I had experienced within the confines of that enigmatic house. However, it's important to note that countless other eerie phenomena unfolded during our time there. One such incident left a lasting impression on my mother. During her pregnancy with my little brother, she found herself slumbering alongside my brother's father, Rick, within my aunt's bedroom. In the dead of the night, Rick abruptly awakened, his gaze transfixed upon a figure that stood at the foot of the bed, a manifestation of the house's former occupant, the deceased gentleman. Instinctively, he shook his mother awake, urgently pointing toward the apparition. My mother, remarkably composed, glanced at the spectral presence before calmly remarking to Rick, "So what? He's just curious about who's in his house. Go back to sleep and ignore him. He won't harm you." Alas, Rick, overwhelmed by fear, promptly vacated the premises and vowed never to step foot inside that house again, regardless of the circumstances. Thus, in reflection, my time within that house in Cosmopolis, Washington, was imbued with an array of inexplicable events that consistently challenged our understanding of the natural world. From the perplexing sink attics to the resounding bootsteps, the objects defying gravity to the unnerving touch upon our heads, and culminating in the chilling laundry room ordeal and the ghostly presence witnessed by my mother with Rick. It was an era defined by otherworldly encounters. These supernatural phenomena wove themselves into the fabric of our daily lives, serving as a constant reminder that the boundaries between the living and the departed are more blurred than we can fathom. Though time has passed and I've long since moved away from that haunting abode, the memories and stories from those years continue to send shivers down my spine, serving as a testament to the enduring power of the inexplicable and the enduring fascination with the supernatural. Story number 4. Grandma's Dolls. From the age of 8 to 14, I had the unique experience of living with my beloved grandma and grandpa. They provided me with a cozy home filled with love and cherished memories. However, there was one particular aspect of their house that filled me with a mixture of curiosity and unease: the guest bedroom. This particular room served as my grandma's private sanctuary for her extensive doll collection, It was a sight to behold that she had amassed over 100 dolls of all kinds. Among them were delicate porcelain dolls, each with its own unique charm. Yet there were a few dolls that possessed an unsavory aura, emanating an eerie presence that sent shivers down my spine. Of all these dolls, one in particular stood out as the epitome of my fears, the ventriloquist doll. This ventriloquist doll bore a striking resemblance to the one featured in the spine-chilling Goosebumps series. Its unnaturally fixed expression and uncanny grin sent chills down my spine whenever my gaze fell upon it. As a younger child, I wasn't particularly bothered by the dolls, likely because my mind was constantly preoccupied with various distractions. However, as the years passed, and I entered adolescence, an overwhelming sense of dread gradually took hold of me whenever I ventured near that room. My bedroom was conveniently situated adjacent to the guest bedroom, which only intensified my apprehension. I made a habit of closing the guest room door tightly every night, seeking solace in the knowledge that it was securely shut. However, a peculiar phenomenon would unfold during the darkest hours of the night. Whenever I mustered the courage to venture to the bathroom, passing the guest room on my way, a sense of trepidation gripped my heart. Upon returning from my nocturnal excursions, I would find the guest room door wide open, as if it was inviting me to confront the unsettling mysteries it held within. I questioned my grandparents, fully aware of their innocence in the matter, yet seeking reassurance in their words. To my surprise, they claimed no responsibility for the door's inexplicable opening during the night. Their puzzlement mirrored my own, but deep down I couldn't help but wonder if there was something far more sinister here. When I turned 12, my grandma received the tragic news of a dear friend's passing. Struck with grief, she decided to honor her late friend's memory in an unconventional way. She took a lock of the departed friend's hair and attached it to the head of one of her oldest dolls, creating a peculiar and macabre memento. Little did we know that this seemingly innocent act would unleash a series of disturbing events that would forever haunt my nights. As the days turned into nights, whispers and disembodied voices emerged from the confines of the doll room, penetrating the silence of the house. The hairs on the back of my neck would stand on end, and an icy shiver would trace its way down my spine as I strained to decipher the cryptic messages that floated through the air. Every time I mustered the courage to peek into the room, a chilling sensation washed over me. It felt as if the eyes of each doll were piercing my soul, their gazes filled with an otherworldly malevolence that sent shudders coursing through my entire being. Turning 13 marked a turning point in my terrifying ordeal. Nightmares began to plague my sleep, tormenting me with their vivid and haunting imagery. I would wake up in the dead of night to find my bed violently shaking beneath me, an invisible force relentlessly rattling my sanctuary. In my fear-stricken state, I would leap out of bed, only to find that the tremors persisted, refusing to relinquish their hold on my fragile reality. The mere thought of seeking solace in the embrace of my slumbering grandparents seemed futile, for their solution to any misfortune was to pray fervently. Hoping divine intervention would cast away the nightmares, perhaps, guided by their unwavering belief that the only spirits that existed were those of a holy nature. The nocturnal disturbances persisted, unyielding in their torment. The incessant whispers and eerie voices merged with the bed's tremors, creating an atmosphere of palpable terror within my bedroom. Desperation seized my heart, rendering me too fearful to disturb my grandparents' precious slumber. The final straw came in the form of a haunting black shadow that would dart across my room with alarming speed. Its presence alone was enough to send me spiraling into a state of abject terror. From that moment onward, I would sleep with something covering my eyes every night, shielding me from the darkness that threatened to consume my soul. The cumulative effort of these nightmarish encounters eventually reached its zenith. Consumed by fear and desperation, I made the heart-wrenching decision to seek refuge with my aunt, hoping that a change of environment would bring respite from the relentless horrors that plagued my existence. It had reached a point where the mere thought of returning to my own room was enough to send shivers down my spine. Till this day, the trauma lingers within me, an indelible mark left by those haunting dolls. The fear they instilled within me remains potent, and I cannot bring myself to trust their innocent appearances. Dolls, once the epitome of innocence and playfulness, have become malevolent entities in my eyes. Sinister bastards that hide secrets beyond mortal comprehension. Their existence serves as a chilling reminder that darkness can lurk beneath even the most benign facades, forever shaping my perception of the world around me. Story number 5. Random howling noise in my house. Living in this house with my boyfriend has been quite an adventure, filled with inexplicable incidents that continue to baffle us. But let me tell you, the recent occurrences take the cake for being the most peculiar and unnerving one yet. Throughout our time here, we've encountered an array of inexplicable phenomenon, and here are some of the strange events that we've experienced. First and foremost, we've had countless encounters with our kitchen drawers. It's as if they possess a mind of their own, slowly gliding open without any assistance. Even my boyfriend's dad has become exasperated by this perplexing phenomenon, unable to fathom why it keeps happening. There's simply no logical explanation for it, and at times we even struggle to open them ourselves. It's a bizarre sight to witness, that's for sure. Additionally, we've been haunted by the presence of inexplicable sounds reverberating through the house. On numerous occasions, we've heard the distinct noise of objects falling, seemingly coming from nowhere. The strangest part is that all our beloved pets were right there with us, and yet we could never pinpoint the source of these mysterious sounds. It's like a ghostly orchestra performing a symphony in the shadows. One eerie incident that stands out involves my boyfriend's father, who, while alone with our pets, heard what resembled a cascade of clothes hangers plummeting in the kitchen late at night. Intrigued and slightly unnerved, he decided to investigate, only to find nothing out of the ordinary. It was as if the sound had materialized from thin air, leaving him bewildered and on edge. Not to be outdone, my boyfriend's brother, who also had his fair share of unexplained encounters, he would often hear loud banging noises emanating from the garage, causing him to rush over, expecting to find something amiss. Yet, time and time again, he would discover an empty, undisturbed space, devoid of any logical explanation from the source of those disruptive noises. It was like a phantom carpenter was tormenting our senses. As for my boyfriend and me, we had our own spine-chilling experience while engrossed in our late-night video game session. During one particular intense gaming session, we suddenly heard a low, muffled growling sound, seemingly originating from the right beside us. It was as if an unseen entity lurked in the shadows, observing our every move. The eeriness of the situation was further amplified by the fact that all the animals were in the opposite end of the house, and everyone else was sound asleep. Nevertheless, we did our best to dismiss it, determined not to let fear consume our thoughts. However, our resolve was truly tested when even the most unsettling incident occurred. My boyfriend and I were once again engrossed in our virtual world, the sounds of our game filling the room, when suddenly a long, loud, drawn-out howl pierced through the silence of the hallway right outside our door. The cacophony startled us, causing the dogs to go into a frenzy, barking and running toward the source of the disturbance. In disbelief, my boyfriend's dad rushed into our room, remarking about how he had successfully managed to scare the dogs with our theatrics. But as he saw the genuine shock on our faces, his expression changed, and he uttered the words, "That wasn't you?" Driven by curiosity and a lingering sense of unease, my boyfriend and his father ventured outside, determined to investigate the origin of this unsettling howl. Their search led them to the area where the haunting cry had seemingly originated, but to their astonishment they discovered no trace of footprints in the snow. The sound had been unmistakably clear, as if it had materialized right within the confines of our home, defying all rational explanations in the process. It was a perplexing event that left us questioning the very nature of our reality. In conclusion, these inexplicable occurrences have woven an intricate tapestry of the paranormal within the fabric of our lives. Each event has left us with more questions than answers, stirring a sense of wonder, awe, and a tinge of fear. From the mischievous kitchen drawers to the unexplained sounds and chilling howl that echoed through our halls, our journey in this house has been a test of our sanity. We continue to grapple with these inexplicable events, forever yearning for the truth behind the unseen forces that surround us, shaping our reality in ways that we may never fully comprehend. Story number 6. My friend and I were recording vocals in my room and heard a startling voice. I reside in a cozy 2-bedroom apartment, which I share with my dear friend. Our shared passion for music has led us to create a makeshift recording setup in one of the bedrooms. It's where we spend countless hours perfecting our tracks, with him on the microphone, donning a pair of headphones, and me sitting at the computer engineering the sound. On a particular day during one of our recording sessions, I pressed the record button, signaling the start of our creative process. Almost immediately, a peculiar sound reached my ears from behind me, as if a muffled female voice was trying to make itself heard. It startled me, but I might have dismissed it without much thought if it weren't for my friend's reaction. He swiftly turned around, his studio headphones still on, and peered into the room, searching for the source. Our eyes met and he looked at me, a hint of bewilderment in his gaze. "Did you hear that too?" he inquired, his voice filled with curiosity and slight unease. Feeling a mix of intrigue and apprehension, we decided to investigate the origin of this mysterious voice that had intruded upon our recording sanctuary. We embarked on a thorough exploration of our humble abode, cautiously examining every nook and cranny, but we found no signs of any individual capable of producing such an eerie sound. Our respective partners were present in the apartment as well, but they seemed to be oblivious to the peculiar occurrence. My girlfriend, who was peacefully slumbering in the adjacent room, was roused from her sleep by a troubled countenance. I approached her gently and inquired if she had uttered anything while we were engrossed in our music-making endeavors. To my surprise, she denied having spoken a single word. With no definitive answers and an increasing sense of curiosity, we returned to the computer, intent on solving this auditory enigma. We realized that we had inadvertently captured the unsettling moment on our recording. Eager to unveil the truth hidden within the audio, we played it back, each note resonating through the speakers. And there it was again, that peculiar voice, sounding as if someone was whispering a soft hello from the corner of the room. It sent shivers down our spines, amplifying our perplexity. Determined to shed light on this unexplained phenomenon, I carefully preserved the unedited audio, knowing it could serve as evidence of the otherworldly encounter that we had experienced. Additionally, I took the liberty of equalizing the recording, employing various techniques to enhance the anomaly's audibility. The result was a modified version of the audio, one that offered a slightly clearer representation of the inexplicable voice that had disrupted our creative sanctuary. If anyone's intrigued or eager to embark on this sonic adventure with us, I'd be more than happy to share both versions of the recording. It's a chance to delve into the uncharted territories of the supernatural and attempt to decipher the hidden messages concealed within the ethereal realm. Story number 7. The Night I Wondered, What or who the hell is at the end of my bed? It must have been 3 or 4 years ago, or maybe even a little bit longer, when this unsettling incident occurred. The vivid memory and the fear that gripped me that day still linger in my mind. I recall sharing a room with a family member, feeling tired as I settled into one side of the bed, my feet positioned near the door. Falling into a deep slumber, I seemed to be at peace. Little did I know that my tranquility would soon be shattered in the middle of the night. Suddenly I awoke, startled by a dream that had jolted me from my sleep. Oh, how I wish I could remember the details of that dream. Nowadays, whenever I prepare to retire for the night in my room, strange occurrences tend to unfold. I find myself hearing peculiar noises, experiencing sudden fluctuations of temperature, and encountering various other inexplicable sensations. But I've grown accustomed to these peculiarities, and I developed a sixth sense for their presence. On that particular night, I found myself awakening from my slumber, my breaths coming in heavy gasps. With a groggy mind, I shifted my feet to the edge of the bed. At the time, I remember my bed being positioned sideways, almost perpendicular to the wall. And it was in that moment, as my feet dangled over the edge, that I felt it, an indescribable presence. Initially, I entertained the possibility that it could be a family member, but most of them were sound asleep. If it were indeed a family member, surely they would have awakened me or maybe needed something. However, this encounter felt different. So I summoned the courage that I had, and I cautiously kicked toward the presence, only to be met with a firm resistance. Confusion swept over me as I realized that something was awry, that an inexplicable force was lurking in the room. I had experienced similar occurrences on multiple occasions, leaving me unable to sleep, plagued by insomnia or overcome with fear upon awakening. But this time the silence was deafening. You might wonder why I didn't simply dismiss this presence as a family member. Well, it dawned on me that no family member would remain so eerily quiet, devoid of speech, and on top, there was no one to be found in the bathroom or hallway. That was the moment it struck me, the unsettling realization that perhaps this entity at the end of my bed was not a member of my family. The thought crept into my mind. What on earth is lurking at the foot of my bed? An overwhelming feeling of anticipation consumed me as I became convinced that whatever it was, it had been waiting for me to drift back to sleep, and that was something I had no desire to do. Just as I was grappling with these unsettling thoughts, my family member rose from the bed and headed towards the restroom. The bathroom light flickered to life, only to be followed by the sound of the door closing shut. As if in response to the movement, the presence at the end of my bed seemed to dissipate into thin air. This incident only reinforced my growing awareness of these mysterious presences that infiltrated my room. I had become attuned to their existence, able to discern their arrival by the sound of faint footsteps at night, a heavy gut feeling that enveloped me, the inexplicable warmth that washed over my body, faint whispers that danced in the air, elusive shadows that flickered in the darkness, the occasional sound of objects moving around the room, and most intriguingly, the sensation of hot breath upon my skin, or a phantom grip reaching out to me. I'll leave you to ponder the implications of that particular experience, but for now, let me assure you that this occurrence was but one in a series of unsettling encounters that have left indelible marks on my psyche. Story number 8. Who Picked Me Up? When I think back to that fateful day, I can still vividly recall the youthful excitement coursing through my veins as I ventured forth in the realms of summer camp. It must have been around me being maybe 8 or 9, and I was filled with innocent enthusiasm that only children possess, right? The camp was a haven for youthful souls, a place where we could immerse ourselves in adventures and forge lasting memories. On this particular day, my cabin mates and I found ourselves strolling along the sandy shores, guided by our counselor and assistant counselor. Our little group, consisting of 12 energetic kids, moved in an orderly line like a flock of birds flying in unison. We made our way near some mesmerizing dunes, a stunning backdrop that added a touch of mystique to our surroundings. The ever-changing ocean tides had carved out a temporary stream, gracefully flowing back toward the vast expanse of the beach. As we walked, I found myself positioned somewhere in the middle of the line, sandwiched between my friends, eagerly taking in the sights and sounds of nature's playground. The two counselors, as usual, seemed to be engaged in their own little world, exchanging playful banter and sharing knowing glances. It was during this carefree stroll that I made a spontaneous decision, driven by an irresistible curiosity. Right there at the edge of the stream, a mischievous thought took hold of my young mind. I wanted to experience the sensation of the crumbling sand beneath my feet, like tiny grains of sugar dissolving into nothingness. With a grin on my face and a sparkle in my eye, I began walking precariously along the edge, reveling in the sheer joy of my innocent experiment. However, fate had a different plan for me that day. Unbeknownst to my unsuspecting self, the sandy edge was more fragile than I had anticipated. With one fateful step, a larger portion crumbled away beneath my feet, plunging both of my legs into the stream. The world seemed to slow down for a brief moment as I felt the sand give way, my feet sinking deeper into the unknown. Panic began to creep into my heart like a stealthy predator. As I stood there, my legs trapped in the mire of saturated sand, a feeling of helplessness washed over me. The sticky sand clung to my skin, reminiscent of warm taffy. The water, rising steadily, reached just above my knee, its touch sending shivers down my spine, or rather up. I frantically tried to extricate myself from this predicament, attempting to take a step forward and free myself from the clutches of the sand's relentless grip. To my dismay, each effort seemed to have the opposite effect. Instead of gaining solid ground, I sank further into the quicksand-like substance. With every desperate push against the sand, I found myself descending deeper into its treacherous embrace. It was a disheartening realization that every step I took only resulted in sinking an inch lower. The weight of the situation pressed heavily upon my young shoulders. As mere seconds turned into what felt like an eternity, I watched with a mixture of anxiety and resignation as the rest of the kids in my group passed by me, their faces a blur in my peripheral vision. The line grew longer, stretching ahead until it seemed impossibly distant, leaving me alone in my dire predicament. I was stranded, abandoned by my comrades, and left to face this ordeal by myself. Fear began to well up within me like the tempestuous storm. The word quicksand echoed through my mind, a haunting realization of the perilous situation I found myself in. A sense of desperation threatened to overwhelm me as the sands of time seemed to slip away with every passing moment. How would I ever escape this sandy trap and find solid ground once more? Just as panic threatened to consume me entirely, a glimmer of hope flickered amongst the depths of my despair. Strong adult hands materialized beneath my armpits, grasping me with determination and purpose. In a swift and decisive motion, these benevolent forces lifted me from my sandy prison and gently set me down on firm, stable ground, safely away from the crumbling edge. Relief washing over me like a cool summer breeze, I couldn't help but feel an overwhelming gratitude toward my mysterious savior. With newfound confidence, I hastily scampered ahead, eager to catch up with the end of the line. It never occurred to me at that tender age to question who had come to my rescue. I simply assumed that one of the caring adults engrossed in their own world of romantic intrigue had seen the predicament and rushed to my aid. Grateful and filled with a renewed sense of caution, I made a silent vow to steer clear of that treacherous edge, not wanting to risk getting in trouble or causing unnecessary worry to my caretakers. Years passed, and the memories of that eventful day slowly faded into the recesses of my mind. It was only in the quiet solitude of adulthood that I pieced together the fragments of that forgotten memory. As the weight of maturity settled upon my shoulders, the realization struck me like a bolt of lightning. The truth was far more perplexing than I could have ever imagined. Reflecting back on that beach, I came to a startling revelation. There was no one else present on that day, no other souls to witness my struggle. The counselors, entangled in their own amorous pursuits, were far ahead, oblivious to my plight. The children, too, had passed by, their innocence shielding them from the drama that had unfolded. I was left alone, trapped in a predicament that seemed like there was no way out of. So who was it that saved me from the clutches of that sandy abyss? The question remains unanswered, a mystery that would forever linger in the depths of my mind. Perhaps it was a guardian angel, a benevolent spirit watching over the camp and its youthful inhabitants. Or maybe it was just a figment of my imagination, a product of a child's desperate longing for salvation. Regardless of the truth, the memory remains etched in my mind, a testament to the inexplicable forces that shape our lives. And so I continue to carry this enigmatic tale with me, a constant reminder of the mysteries that surround us, the hidden heroes that emerge from where we least expect them. It serves as a poignant reminder to never underestimate the power of a helping hand, even when we cannot fathom its origin. Life with all of its inexplicable wonders, and that day at the summer camp, stands as a testament to the extraordinary moments that define our journey. Story number 9. My daughter, age 17, and I arose at 9:30 and we saw a bright light, almost like a camera flash. About a year ago, my 2 children, aged 16 and 12 at the time, found themselves home alone while I was busy with work. It was during this time that they came to me frightened, claiming to have seen camera flashes coming from outside that seemed to enter through all sides of the house's windows. They genuinely believed that there were people outside capturing photographs, and thought that these camera flashes explained the mysterious light that they had witnessed. Now, my home is nestled amidst a picturesque backdrop of woods, and though I understood their fear, I simply brushed it off, attributing it to their imagination. This was despite my own childhood experiences of encountering multiple spirits, which I kept to myself, not wanting to instill fear in my children. As far as I was concerned, the flashing light held no paranormal significance, yet it deeply unsettled my kids, and that troubled me. As time went on, however, the situation escalated. My children began to experience loud bangs on the windows, jolting them awake from their sleep. At this point, I began to suspect that we had been maybe experiencing a peeping Tom lurking around, someone who derived some sick pleasure from terrorizing my children. Determined to protect my family, I took action and acquired a large and intimidating dog, while simultaneously altering my work schedule to be more present at home. Miraculously, the strange occurrences ceased, and we enjoyed a period of tranquility. Yet ever since I moved into this house, I've sensed a lingering presence, an intangible force that seemed to coexist peacefully with me. It was a sensation that was difficult to articulate, but it never elicited fear. Of course, I never disclosed the feeling to my children, for their well-being was paramount to my mind. However, a significant incident unfolded just last night when my 17-year-old and I were engrossed in a television program about near-death experiences that unexpectedly transitioned into mediums discussing how departed loved ones communicate with us through signs. In a whimsical moment, I silently addressed my late grandmother, playfully requesting her to provide some sort of sign if she was indeed present. To be honest, I didn't truly expect anything to happen. It was more of a light-hearted, wishful thought. But then, in the blink of an eye, everything changed. A brilliant, vivid flash of light burst forth from the hallway, radiating an intense white hue accompanied by a subtle yet discernible tinge of blue. The luminosity was so overwhelming, so prominent, that it had my teenage daughter not witnessed it too. I might have dismissed it as a trick of the eye or an optical anomaly. However, her wide-eyed reaction mirrored my own astonishment. When I inquired if she had seen the dazzling phenomenon, she affirmed, describing precisely what I had observed. Intrigued and filled with curiosity, I rose from the couch, determined to uncover the source of this mysterious light. Perhaps a light bulb had malfunctioned, or some other mundane explanation awaited me. As I ventured into the hallway, I noted that the lights were switched on, casting their customary warm yellow glow throughout the house. None of the bulbs had burned, leaving me perplexed. The flash we had witnessed appeared as if someone had entered our dining room and snapped a photograph, with the resulting burst of light traveling down the hall, ending right in front of my bedroom door. Our cat, who happened to be lying nonchalantly in the hallway, gazing toward the dining room, seemed entirely unfazed by the extraordinary occurrence. I reasoned that if there had been an intruder present, our vigilant feline would have detected the presence. Moreover, we would have heard the distinct sound of someone's presence as well, but silence enveloped our surroundings, amplifying the enigma that had unfolded before us. Strangely enough, my daughter drew a connection between this recent flash and the ones that she and her sibling had encountered years ago. It seemed eerily reminiscent. Although I had summoned a sign from my departed grandmother, deep within me I couldn't shake the feeling that this particular manifestation did not origin from her. Instead, it seemed to be an ethereal entity, a presence unrelated to my loved grandmother, attempting to communicate with me, to establish its existence within our shared space. Story number 10. My potentially haunted uni-flat. Back when I was in university, living in a student accommodation, I found myself immersed in a series of strange events that unfolded throughout the year. As we were a group of 7 friends who decided to share the space together, we had our fair share of peculiar occurrences that sparked discussions about the possibility of our flat being haunted. The other day, we were reminiscing about these incidents in our group chat, and I thought it would be interesting to compile a chronological list of all the eerie happenings. Some of these events I personally witnessed, while others were relayed to me by my flatmates. So let me take you through this captivating journey, detailing each incident and indicating whether I witnessed it or not. The first unusual incident began during Freshers' Week and continued to happen quite frequently throughout the year. It involved the motion lights in the hallway, turning on one by one, as if someone was walking through them. The hallway was equipped with motion sensors, and we first noticed this phenomenon while enjoying drinks on Freshers' Night. Although it was not confirmed paranormal activity, and could easily be attributed to the electrical malfunction, it was intriguing nonetheless. Witnessed. A few weeks later, Kyle and Jenny, the couple sharing the double room, mentioned that their shower head turned in the middle of the night. This incident, while unconfirmed as I didn't witness it, was purely hearsay and could potentially be explained as water malfunction, unwitnessed. Things took a mere turn for the eerie. From this point onwards, especially. We had a friend named Eve, and she was over one night after a night out. Since she was sleeping on the couch in our combined living room and kitchen, she needed to use one of our en-suite bathrooms. Opting for Kyle and Jenny's room due to the proximity of the kitchen, she encountered a rather terrifying experience. After her nighttime toilet trip, she struggled to push the door open and described feeling resistance, as if someone was pushing against it from the other side. Despite exerting an incredible amount of force, the door suddenly flew open, causing her to stumble and fall. When I came out upon hearing her cries, she tearfully explained what had happened. Through her intoxicated state, raised the possibility of an alternative explanation. Unwitnessed, but saw the aftermath. One of the strangest incidents occurred a few months later. It involved myself, Adam, and Josh, who were all gathered in the kitchen. While I had finished cooking and sat at the kitchen table, eating and observing Josh's cooking escapades, Adam was playfully swatting him with a spatula. Amidst our laughter and jokes, something extraordinary happened. A coffee pot sitting on the side suddenly leaped into the air, soaring at least 2 feet before crashing against the ceiling and spilling its contents onto the floor. The three of us were left utterly speechless. Adam, who had been skeptical about the existence of ghosts and had explanations for everything prior to this incident, struggled to find a plausible reason for what had just occurred. He proposed that the heat from the cooking might have caused a pressure buildup underneath the coffee pot, resulting in air expansion and its subsequent launch. However, I remained unconvinced. Witnessed. Another incident, relayed by Adam and Josh, involved the living room door swinging open with such force that it damaged the adjacent wall. Despite their attempts to recreate the event by opening windows or other doors to create a breeze, they couldn't replicate the strength and intensity with which the door had been thrown open. Annoyingly, all of us were held responsible for the damage to the wall, and the cost was deducted from our deposit. Kyle and Jenny, suspecting that Adam and Josh had fabricated the story to divert blame from their own playfully induced damage, questioned the authenticity of the event. Unwitnessed. On one movie night, Kyle, Jenny, and another girl from a different flat, and I, gathered to watch a lineup of cult classic bad movies, including The Room and Birdemic. During the viewing, Jenny noticed the bathroom light flickering and claimed to have seen a shadow of a person moving across the wall and into the bathroom. Intrigued, the other girl and I went to investigate, only to find the light on and the sink running. Jenny insisted that she had turned off the sink after using it last. This particular incident, witnessed by myself, added to the mounting evidence of something uncanny happening in our flat. Witnessed. Josh and Kyle and Jenny decided to take matters into their own hands and attempted to communicate with the alleged spirit using a Ouija board in the kitchen. As the most fervent believers in the haunted nature of our flat, they engaged in a conversation with the spirit claiming to be a guardian of sorts. Additionally, Josh shared an encounter with the on-site security personnel who supposedly disclosed that a student had tragically taken their own life in our flat several years prior. However, the inconsistency between the security guard's account and the information conveyed through the Ouija board raised double among myself and Adam, casting skepticism on the validity of their claims. Moreover, having participated in Ouija board sessions in the past at supposedly haunted locations without any discernible responses, I remained hesitant to fully embrace the paranormal explanation. Unwitnessed. Now let me share a personal experience that sent shivers down my spine. Being quite the geek, I had an impressive collection of Doctor Who's sonic screwdrivers proudly displayed in my room. However, one of the screwdrivers, specifically the Third Doctor's version, mysteriously went missing for weeks. Assuming it was a result of an ongoing flat prank war between myself, Josh, and Leon, I suspected foul play. One night as my girlfriend and I lay in bed, I distinctly heard the sound of one of my screwdrivers emitting its characteristic whirring noise, as if someone were pressing its button. The sound seemed to be emanating from underneath the bed. Intrigued, I grabbed my torch and peered underneath, only to discover the missing screwdriver situated at the back, still making the whirring sound. The moment I touched it, the noise ceased abruptly. I pondered over possibilities of maybe an external force pressing the button, but this particular screwdriver required pulling down on a lever, making it all the more perplexing. This spine-chilling incident left me puzzled and unsettled. Witnessed. The last event that we collectively acknowledged, aside from the frequent cases of objects mysteriously disappearing and Josh's claims of the TV turning itself on or off, or changing channels whenever he was alone in the room, which which turned out to be pranks orchestrated by myself using a Samsung Peel remote and Leon's mischievous nature causing items to go missing, unfolded one night while my girlfriend and I were in my room. She was engrossed in playing her Nintendo Switch or DS, and I was engrossed in watching an episode of Dragon Ball on TV. Suddenly we heard 3 loud rhythmic knocks on the window. Although the curtains were drawn, the distinct sound of knuckles rapping against glass echoed throughout the room. Momentarily frozen in surprise, I turned off my device. My girlfriend turned to me, questioning if someone had knocked on our window. And as if on cue, we heard the knock again, confirming our initial suspicion. Hastily, I flung open the curtains, hoping to catch sight of this prankster responsible. But to our bewilderment, there was nothing to be seen. Our flat was situated on the 6th floor, making it even more baffling. A party was underway in the room directly below us, leading me to speculate whether someone from that gathering had used a long stick or some other means to prank us. However, they denied any involvement, and when I inquired about the possibility of someone leaning down from the room above, I discovered that it was unoccupied. This enigmatic incident left both my girlfriend and me at a loss for rational explanation. Witnessed. So there you have it, a compilation of all the peculiar and unexplained events that unfolded in our university flat. Interestingly, Leon and another girl who resided with us seemed to have evaded any paranormal encounters themselves. Whether this discrepancy holds any significance remains a mystery. Prior to my experiences in this flat, I hadn't been particularly convinced of the supernatural, but these inexplicable incidents, coupled with the stories shared by my family, have compelled me to reconsider my beliefs. In fact, I have a few intriguing tales from my parents and brother that I believe will captivate all of you. However, I'm currently preparing for a vacation next week, so I'll make sure to share those stories once I return home from holiday. Story number 11, Weeping Woman in White. So let me take you back to a time about a decade ago when I was just a young teenager around 14 or 15. Picture this, I live in the beautiful country of France, in the Pacific region, and it's a serene place, nestled in the northeast and bordered by the enchanting landscapes of Germany. It's a small mountainous area with picturesque countryside views that will take your breath away. On that particular day, I found myself in the company of my cousin, who happened to be the same age as me. We were inseparable as kids, always up to some mischief or adventure together. Little did we know that fate had something rather extraordinary planned for us that day. You see, our town was hosting, a grand event, a prestigious bike competition. It was a round of the World Cup of downhill biking, and had become a matter of immense pride for our humble little town. The streets were abuzz with excitement, teeming with people who had flocked from near and far to witness this exhilarating race. There were designated entrances scattered all around, leading to the center of the action and along the racetrack. However, being the frugal teenagers that we were, my cousin and I had no intention of shelling out a hefty sum of 20 quid for a mere entrance ticket. It was simply too extravagant for our modest budgets. But we were not ones to be discouraged easily. In a stroke of brilliance, we concocted a plan to circumvent the system and enjoy the spectacle without spending a single dime. Our ingenious idea involved trekking through the dense forest that lay adjacent to my parents' house. You see, their house was situated uphill on the mountain, and by traversing the forest, we could reach a point along the racetrack that was at the same elevation. It was a shortcut of sorts, enabling us to bypass the ticketed entrances. Of course, it's worth noting that this fateful day happened to be drenched in a torrential downpour. The rain fell relentlessly, transforming the landscape into a muddy labyrinth. With resolute determination, my cousin and I embarked on our muddy odyssey through the treacherous forest. The trees seemed to close in around us, and ground squelched beneath our every step. For what felt like an eternity, we battled against the elements, pushing forward through the soaked undergrowth. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, we stumbled upon a small clearing nestled within the heart of this wretched forest. It was a sight for sore eyes, a sanctuary amidst the chaos. In this serene haven there stood a quaint house, accompanied by a narrow dirt road that snaked its way uphill. Parallel to it, we noticed another road, even steeper, bustling with countless people who were traversing it on purpose. The distant sound of the race's announcer reached our ears, confirming our suspicions that this was indeed a checkpoint or entrance point. Intrigued, we decided to take the less crowded dirt road adjacent to the house, where nobody seemed to be present. It felt peculiar, though, as hundreds of people milled about uphill on the other road. We meandered along the dirt road, winding through a small patch of woods. We knew that the racetrack lay just a few meters ahead. However, as we turned one particular bend, our eyes beheld a chilling sight. Right there before us was a stack of fallen trees, 6 or 7 of them precariously arranged on the roadside. And atop this eerie pile of lumber sat a woman. Her appearance was haunting, her long black hair cascading over her face, concealing her features as she sobbed into her hands. She wore a flowing white dress that contrasted starkly with the bleakness of the surroundings. Both my cousin and I spotted her simultaneously, and a shiver ran down our spines. Fear gripped us, leaving us frozen in our tracks, with goosebumps prickling our skin. It's important to note that the restless rain and the enveloping mist only added to the atmosphere of unease and foreboding. In that moment, we didn't exchange a single word. Instead, we turned on our heels, united in our silent decision to avert our gaze and retreat. It was as if we were silently communicating, saying, "Shall we take the other road?" To which the unspoken reply was a resolute yes. With newfound urgency, we retraced our steps, reaching the second road where the crowd was gathered, their excitement palpable as they spectated the race. We managed to catch a glimpse of the heart-pounding action too, but that woman, her haunting image, remained etched in our minds. We couldn't shake off the shock that we had experienced in that eerie moment. In an attempt to rationalize the encounter, I tried convincing myself that she was merely a spectator, someone who had endured a heartbreak or perhaps drowned her sorrows in alcohol. My cousin and I never broached the topic again, assuming that he too had buried the memory deep within. However, destiny had different plans in store for us. Fast forward about 4 or 5 years later, and my cousin and I found ourselves late night partying at a friend's house. The hour was nearing dawn, and only a handful of us remained, gathering around a flickering campfire in the garden. It was the perfect setting for storytelling, and it seemed as if the universe conspired to bring back the memories that we thought were long forgotten. Unexpectedly, my friend's stepfather, a man whose presence there remains a mystery to this day, delved into a spine-chilling tale. He recounted a ghostly encounter that he had experienced in a secluded cabin deep within the heart of a forest. As he spun his yarn, memories of the weeping woman resurfaced within me, and I felt compelled to share our own unsettling experience with the group. As the words tumbled out, my cousin's gaze turned angry, and he unleashed his frustration upon me. You unrelenting fool! I thought you had vowed never to speak of it again," he exclaimed, his voice laced with lingering fear and a tinge of resentment. It was evident that the encounter with that mysterious woman had left an indelible mark on both our souls. And so, my friend, that is the tale of how a simple decision to avoid an entrance fee led my cousin and me into the depths of a rain-soaked forest, only to stumble upon a haunting apparition. It's a memory that will forever be etched in our minds. It's a reminder that sometimes the inexplicable and otherworldly can cross our paths when we least expect it. Story number 12. The Cursed Forest. The Cursed Forest, as I've come to call it, lies adjacent to a picturesque river and stretches beyond vast farmland at the bottom of my estate. The patch of woods has gained popularity among dog walkers, which is quite fitting as my family had recently welcomed a new canine companion into our lives. While I wasn't present for the incident I'm about to recount, I can assure you that it is a tale worth sharing, albeit rather brief. It all began when my parents decided to take our dog for a leisurely stroll. The usual route led to the stunning coastline, but on that particular day, they veered off the well-trodden path to explore the mysteries concealed within the depths of the woods. To their surprise, they stumbled upon what my mother later referred to as a shrine dedicated to a woman. Freshly arranged flowers adorned the site, indicating that it was frequented by someone with great devotion. My mother, ever the imaginative soul, speculated that the woman may have tragically taken her own life, or met an untimely demise in an unfortunate accident. As they stood there contemplating the enigmatic memorial, a bone-chilling sound shattered the tranquility of the forest. My mother struggled to find the appropriate words to describe it accurately. Finally settling on a comparison to a demonic creature bursting into flames on a horror movie screen, I could only imagine the terrifying nature of that screeching or screaming sound that she tried to convey. In that moment, a palpable feeling of unease washed over her, as if the woman memorialized in the shrine vehemently opposed their presence. Hastily, my parents retreated from the site, eager to escape the unsettling atmosphere that had engulfed them. The next tale takes us back to the cursed woods, only this time I was fortunate enough to be present. While it may not have possessed the same supernatural air as the previous story, it certainly left an indelible mark on our memories. Picture this. My mother and I, embarking on a routine dog-walking expedition, unease gnawed at my mother's nerves. Fueled by the distant rumble of approaching quad bikes, she harbored grave concerns for the safety of our furry friend, fearing that the noisy vehicles might inadvertently cause him harm. Suddenly, the roar of an engine pierced the air, and I turned to find a quad bike hurtling dangerously close behind us. Panic gripped my mother as she desperately pursued our unleashed dog, her sole purpose to prevent him from being crushed under the quad bike's wheels. In a moment of urgency, I commanded her to scoop up our loyal companion, safeguarding him from any potential harm. As the rider sped past us, I could sense no malice emanating from him, providing a fleeting reassurance amidst the chaos. However, the sense of foreboding did not dissipate entirely. On our journey back, the atmosphere took on an eerie quality. Faint, jolly voices, possibly fueled by alcohol, reverberated through the forest. My mother's anxiety heightened to unprecedented levels, urging me to quicken my pace and to keep up with her. Our faithful dog, who had been off the leash earlier, was now restrained by a firm grip, serving as an additional safeguard in this case. We cast frequent glances over our shoulders, half expecting to encounter someone with malicious intentions, but our searches revealed no presence save the haunting silence of the woods. These inexplicable incidents have led me to christen this enigmatic woodland realm as the Cursed Forest. I hope you've derived some measure of enjoyment from my account. I took extra care to ensure that the narrative flowed more smoothly than my previous stories, which seemed somewhat jumbled due to my excitement while recounting them. The Spooky Stair Sprint. Story number 13. Recently, I found myself engrossed in a captivating conversation with my mom about the enigmatic realm of ghosts. Being from a family that possessed a heightened spiritual sensitivity, especially on my mom's side, the topic seemed to evoke an air of intrigue. It was during this exchange that I casually expressed my preference for residing in a newly constructed house. under the assumption that such a dwelling would be devoid of any spectral visitors, as it would be unlikely for anyone to have passed away within its pristine walls. To my astonishment, my mom merely gazed at me, her eyes brimming with a hidden knowledge, before uttering words that would shatter my naive beliefs. A new build doesn't guarantee immunity from hauntings, my dear. Let me share with you the tale of our former house, which was only 8 years old and yet harbored the most haunting experiences we ever encountered, despite no one having met their demise within its confines. Intrigued by this revelation, I implored my mom to recount the haunting events that had unfolded. She began recounting the eerie sensation that would envelop her whenever she found herself alone in the house. Specifically, if she happened to be seated on the sofa that offered a clear view of the staircase, an overwhelming sense of being watched would consume her. However, curiously enough, once she relocated to the other sofa, the unsettling feeling would inexplicably dissipate, as though the gaze of the unseen presence was only fixated upon her when she remained within sight of the stairs. Adding to the chilling narrative, my mom revealed that when nightfall descended, and she prepared to retire for the evening, a sinister aura would permeate the staircase as soon as she switched off the lights. This forbidding atmosphere would propel her to hasten up the stairs, seeking solace in the sanctuary of the landing. It appeared that the malevolent presence haunting the house was confined solely to the realm of the stairs, forever lurking within its shadows. Eager to seek validation and perhaps an explanation for these eerie occurrences, my mom enlisted the assistance of my Nana, whose own spiritual perceptiveness often surpassed our comprehension. Surprisingly, even Nana failed to discern any paranormal disturbances within the house. Upon the sale of our haunted haven, my mom fortuitously engaged in conversation with our neighbor, who happened to be the mother of my closest friend. In passing, my mom mentioned the perpetual funny feeling that had plagued her during her time in that peculiar house, almost justifying her relief at parting ways with it. Astonishingly, our neighbor responded with a startling revelation, divulging that the previous occupants of the house had also complained of a malevolent spirit lingering upon the stairs, an entity that had left her feeling perpetually watched and unnerved. The disclosure left my mom reeling with disbelief, for she had assumed the absence of any supernatural detection by my Nana implied that the spirit had truly never existed. After all, my Nana had proven her ability to sense malevolent spirits on countless occasions, including the harrowing tale involving a French Nazi ghost brothel hotel and another encounter with a malevolent entity that had directly impacted my mom. These instances has all been met with my Nana's undeniable detection, leaving no room for skepticism. In conclusion, my journey into the realm of the supernatural has been one filled with astonishment and awe. The revelations of haunted houses, spectral apparitions, and intricacies of spiritual sensitivity have forever altered my perception of the world around me. With each passing day, I find myself delving deeper into the mysteries of the unknown, armed with the knowledge that the realms of the living and the ethereal often intertwine in ways that elude rational comprehension. Perhaps one day, armed with the wisdom inherited from my mom and the spiritual sensitivity that flows within my veins, I too will unravel the enigma of the supernatural and share my own tales of spectral encounters with those who dare to venture into the shadows of the unexplained. Story number 14. My ex and I have been in no contact for months after I dropped him off at a psych stay, and he screamed he didn't love me. Tuesday, I got a letter from him saying that my grandfather, R.I.P., visited him. My grandfather, a man destined for greatness, had a remarkable life story. Born in the Philippines, he left his impoverished roots behind to join the U.S. Air Force, where he fought valiantly in Vietnam to secure citizenship, not just for himself, but also for my grandmother and their children. While he possessed a tough demeanor that made it difficult for many people, including his own family and children, to be around him, I was fortunate enough to be his beloved baby. He showered me with love and would go to great lengths to make me happy, such as allowing me to have a dog despite my grandmother's fear of them. Tragically, he was murdered in 2010, and it took months before we even discovered the truth, due to the circumstances surrounding his body. However, during his funeral, it became apparent that it held a special place in his heart, or I held a special place. His family revealed how proud he was of me and how he frequently spoke of me. The background sets the stage for a unique belief held by my entire family. My grandfather visits us in the form of hummingbirds. Strangely enough, after his passing, whenever I would sit on the porch and smoke a cigarette, a hummingbird would appear, zooming in front of me, pausing for a few seconds as if it were staring at me, with a profound understanding, and then vanishing into the distance. This incredible phenomenon occurred repeatedly, making me the first person in my family to witness his return, both in my dreams and as a full apparition. Naturally, my uncle's mother and grandmother were taken back by this, but deep down they knew if my grandfather were to make a comeback, it would undoubtedly be to me first. With that said, it became clear that hummingbirds have become synonymous with my grandfather. They symbolize a spiritual presence in our lives. This belief gained further strength through a peculiar event involving my ex, with whom I had an incredible turbulent and toxic relationship that came to an end in August or perhaps September. Our breakup involved a massive blowout, and things became incredibly unpleasant. Nonetheless, I made a conscious decision to move forward. Although my ex reached out to me a couple times afterward, I stopped answering calls from unknown numbers altogether after one particular phone call prompted me to involve the police. Fast forward to mid-November when I received an unexpected letter from my ex. It turns out he was attending a school to become a rabbi or something of that nature. When we initially met, he identified as an Orthodox Jew, and now he was pursuing a religious path. I called to confirm the validity of his claim, which indeed turned out to be true. In the letter, my ex described a specific incident that I couldn't help but perceive as a sign. Though I remained unsure of its meaning, he recounted a morning where he was utterly lost, broken and devoid of any hope. In those despairing moments, his love for me and the prospect of seeing me again were the only things keeping him going. He mentioned that this morning of reckoning, he was visited by my grandfather. According to him, he lay on the ground, bathed in the morning sun. An unusually lingering hummingbird appeared before him. It seemed to lock eyes with him, emanating a profound sense of understanding. He believed that my grandfather had come to assure him that it was acceptable to continue loving me, despite the turmoil that we had endured. Since I received his letter and subsequently sent one back, which should reach him any day now, if it hasn't already, I have not been visited by the hummingbird or experienced any other form of contact. It perplexes me greatly. Why would my grandfather visit my ex of all people, especially considering the hardships that he inflicted upon me and our relationship? This curiosity haunts me. I find myself stepping outside at different times, taking my place at the stool and smoking a cigarette, hoping for another encounter. As the weather gradually warms up this weekend, my yearning intensifies. I yearn for just one more presence of a bird. I long for a dream, a sign, anything that would provide me with further understanding and closure. Story number 15. It lives in the closet and it's going to kill him. When I reflect upon my time when my ex-partner and I initially embarked on our relationship, the memories transport me to this peculiar abode situated in the vast expanse of the high desert in California. His father's residence, to be precise. It was a desolate place, devoid of much other than sand, narcotics, and elderly individuals. This dwelling occupied by my ex's father can best be described as a sublet of sorts. It comprised a house with what one might deem attached apartments. Within the apartment, there existed a modest living room, a bedroom, a kitchen, and a bathroom, all tightly confined within the limited space. Interestingly, my ex informed me that his father, an aged gentleman in his 80s, habitually slept on the couch, claiming it to be an eternal arrangement. Throughout my life, I've possessed a peculiar sensitivity to the supernatural and otherworldly things. My earliest recollection of encountering such occurrences dates back to when I was less than 1 year old, right outside the church where my great-uncle's funeral was held. During that peculiar incident, I alarmed my cousin, who was cradling me, by pointing out the apparition of my late great-uncle on the opposite side of the street. But that, my friend, is a tale for another occasion. That house always evoked a sense of unease within me. The moment I set foot inside, an ominous feeling engulfed me, signaling that something was amiss in that place, something undeniably awry. Inside the bathroom, there was merely enough space for a queen-sized bed, flanked by bedside tables on the other side, and a capricious closet adorned with one of those sliding doors. For my childhood years, I had implemented a rule for myself, a steadfast practice of keeping closet doors securely shut during the nocturnal hours. I held a firm belief that closets harbored entities, ethereal or otherwise, which should not traverse our earthly realm. One particular night stands out vividly in my memory. I lay in bed alongside my ex-partner when suddenly an overwhelming sense of dread engulfs me. The atmosphere in the room grew palpably heavy, and I could sense the presence of something inexplicable. As my eyes adjusted to the darkness, they were met with the sight of a closet door ajar. It's essential to elucidate the reason behind this occurrence, and I shall return to it in due course. I had always experienced difficulty sleeping in that vicinity, especially when in close proximity to that closet. However, on this particular night, as I gazed into the impenetrable darkness, I beheld something that sent shivers coursing down my spine. My breathing quickened, my chest tightened, and my ex, sensing my distress, inquired about the cause. I mustered the courage to respond. I see it. It dwells within the closet. Although I had always sensed the presence of some entity inhabiting that space, this marked the first occasion on which it allowed me to glimpse its form. My ex fell into an eerie silence, only to reveal that he too believed me. Moreover, he indulged in the existence of a ghastly secret, a sinister force that had become intertwined with his father's life. Astonishingly, my ex disclosed that his octogenarian father, in the wee hours of the night, between 2 and 4, would burst into their shared living quarters, unleashing blood-curdling screams that startled both of us awake. The catalyst behind this unnerving ritual? None other than the closure of the very closet door. The elder gentleman would forcefully wrench it open, storm out of the room, and retire to his accustomed couch in the living room. This ritualistic behavior had persisted ever since he first set foot in that dwelling. The being I glimpsed within the confines of that closet was far from human or humanoid. It possessed menacing teeth, feline-like ears, and eyes that pierced through the darkness. Even the dim light, the iridescent gleam of its yellowed teeth was unmistakable. Unsettlingly, it wore a smile, an eerie grin directed squarely at me. Intrigued yet wary, I engaged in silent observation, endeavoring to discern any clues it might divulge. I yearned for answers, desperate to comprehend its desires, its allegiance, its origins, anything that might shed light on its nature. Ordinarily, my abilities allowed me to coax entities into communication, but this particular one defied my efforts. maintaining its unwavering gaze and that disconcerting smile. Unable to withstand its unnerving presence any longer, I hastily vacated to bed, seeking refuge within the safety of my car parked outside. Desperate for solace and guidance, I frantically reached out to various friends, beseeching them for a tarot reading. I longed for reassurance, eager to know if I were in imminent danger or if this being intended to harm me. Why had it chosen this moment to reveal itself? Amidst the chaos of emotions, my ex-partner vehemently protested my inclination to confront the supernatural entity using pagan methods, warning that such actions would merely exacerbate the situation. Being an Orthodox Jew, he adhered to his own set of beliefs, often dismissing my own practices as paganistic. In light of the escalating tension and my growing fear, I took a firm stance, refusing to set foot within that house, declining to spend the night there, and rejecting any involvement with that entity that resided within that closet. Severing ties with that haunted house was made all the easier by the toxic nature of my relationship with my ex-partner. Months trickled by, and eventually news reached me that my ex-partner's father had suffered a grave injury within the confines of that house. He had slipped and struck his head with such force that his cognitive faculties became severely impaired. Even at that time, he struggled to maintain a semblance of functionality. It appeared increasingly likely that the elder gentleman would meet his demise alone within that very house, accompanied only by the enigmatic presence dwelling within the closet. Story number 16. Posted this as an answer to an Ask Reddit question. Figured maybe it would be enjoyed more over here. Back in my high school days, I had this close friend who had a knack for calling me at the most unexpected hours. It was around 2 a.m. when my phone buzzed, jolting me awake from my usual insomnia-induced state. You see, I was notorious for my sleepless nights, so he assumed I'd be the only one soul still awake, especially considering that we had to be in school in a mere 5 hours. As I groggily answered the call, I could sense the unease in his voice. He explained that he had gotten into a heated argument with his dad before retiring to bed. It seemed that their fight were not in common, as his father had a peculiar habit of seeking solace in his son's room after their heated exchanges. Thus, when my friend awoke in the middle of the night and discerned the silhouette of a figure perched on the edge of his bed, he naturally assumed it to be his remorseful father, seeking to reconcile their differences. "Dad?" he called out tentatively, expecting a reassuring response. However, the shadow remained motionless, eliciting a sense of disquiet within him. Increasingly frantic, he repeated his cry, "Dad!" Yet there was no response, no movement. His desperation drove him to shake his feet at the foot of the bed, hoping to rouse his father or at the very least prompt a reaction. To his growing apprehension when the blanket was tugged upwards, he realized with a mounting alarm that there was no one occupying the bed. Panic began to consume him when he realized that the shadowy figure had vanished without a trace. Upon hearing his terrifying ordeal, I initially attributed it to his groggy state, a mere hallucination that often accompanies waking up suddenly. After all, haven't we all experienced that eerie sensation when emerging from a deep slumber? Despite my attempts to console him, his fear persisted, though, driving him to flee his house and seek refuge on the porch. Living not too far from him, I offered to drive over, hoping that a bit of herbal relaxation might assuage his distress. Eventually, I managed to calm his trembling nerves, employ persuasive words to convince him that his eyes had deceived him in the midst of his nocturnal days. To further alleviate his anxiety, we indulged in a couple of blunts, allowing the marijuana's tranquilizing effects to take hold. Finally, he felt composed enough to retreat back into the confines of his home, and I made my way toward the exit. As fate would have it, my departure was met with a sudden misplacement of my lighter, causing it to fall behind me. Turning around to retrieve it, I inadvertently glanced up, my gaze fixated on the top right of the window of his house, which happened to be his room. To my shock, I beheld the figure of a man lurking within, positioned ominously at the window. Initially, my thoughts raced, considering the possibility that it might be his father, drawn by the scent of our smoking downstairs. Yet upon closer inspection, my heart skipped a beat as I realized that this was no familiar face. Panic welled within me, an overwhelming realization that a stranger might be prowling within his house. I felt a surge of adrenaline, my mind spinning with fear, and then, as if in a macabre dance, the man suddenly shifted his gaze to the right, moving toward the center of the window, and in an instant, vanished. In the aftermath of the chilling encounter, I made a conscious decision to keep the incident to myself, a secret locked within the recesses of my mind. There were several reasons for my silence. Firstly, I knew that my only friend would lend credence to my tale, but the mere acknowledgement of such a harrowing presence would undoubtedly amplify its existing fears. So in an effort to shield him from further distress, I chose to withhold it. Secondly, I knew all too well that others might perceive my account as kind of crazy. They would dismiss it as a consequence of being under the influence of drugs or undermining the validity of my experience altogether. But as a seasoned consumer of herb during my high school years, I had a high tolerance and I understood its effects. And let alone the sight of a phantom figure lingering in a window for seemingly an eternal 15 seconds just didn't fit the bill. So I carried the secret burden, the weight of an otherworldly encounter that defied logical explanation. It became an enigma that nestled within the depths of my consciousness, forever shaping my perception of the boundaries between reality and the supernatural. And as time passed, the incident remained etched in my memory, a haunting reminder of that fateful night when shadows danced and the unseen made itself known. Story number 17. I saw a girl glitch and become an NPC for a moment, like her actions were being controlled by something else. 2 years ago, a group of friends and I gathered at my friend's house in Salt Lake City, a location that doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things, but it sets the stage for this strange tale. We were about 10 in total, simply hanging out and enjoying each other's company without the influence of any mind-altering substances. It was during this casual gathering that one of our friends, for the sake of the story, let's call her Lex, suggested that we play a game of sardines. You know, that game where one person hides while the rest of us have to search for them. Little did we know that the event that unfolded next would take a turn for the bizarre, leaving us all bewildered and disturbed. As the game commenced, one of my friends decided to embark on a deep and cunning hiding spot within the confines of the house. The rest of us, unaware of the peculiarities that lay ahead, began our quest to uncover the hidden individual. And so, a couple of minutes into the game, I find myself walking down the dimly lit hallway, positioned near its starting point. It was at this precise moment that Lex emerged from the bathroom. Positioned midway down the corridor, she seemed oblivious to my presence, and that's when things started to get incredibly unsettling. Lexi paused for a moment, and in that brief instant, something utterly inexplicable occurred. She seemed to glitch, much like a scene from the animated series Rick and Morty, where the characters experience peculiar distortions in reality. As if that weren't strange enough, she also underwent a transformation of sorts, becoming pixelated during the glitch. What happened next was both robotic and unnatural, leaving me with an overwhelming feeling of discomfort. Lex made an abrupt and distinct 90-degree left turn, her movements devoid of any human grace, and entered the room on the left. Witnessing this surreal sequence, as it unfolded before my eyes, was making me feel sick, as if I had stumbled upon something that should remain hidden. It was like watching a character from The Sims navigate their virtual surroundings, but this was no simulation. It was happening in our reality. The fact that Lexi was completely unaware of my presence only intensified the unsettling nature of the experience. In that moment she existed, in this perceived solitude. That realization alone made me feel nauseated. It's important to emphasize that all of us were completely sober during this encounter, and now I struggled to comprehend the true nature of what unfolded before me. The impact that it had on me was profound, as if it forever scarred my perception of her. Prior to that incident, I harbored a small crush on her, but from that point onward, I could never view her as a conscious living being. It's difficult to articulate just how messed up this realization made me feel, but I can't deny its truth. Lex, in all her uncanny glory, continues to evoke a sense of unease within, a reminder of the inexplicable and disquieting encounter that forever altered my perception of reality. Story number 18, You Can Talk to Trees. Excerpts from the book, Conversations with Trees, and a message from trees for Reddit's people and not. My conscious adventure with trees began approximately 3 years ago when I stumbled upon a book titled Conversations with Trees by Veronika Dabrowska. Reading that book completely turned my world upside down, like trying to pronounce her name as the narrator. The knowledge that was passed on by the trees within those pages was unlike anything I'd ever encountered. It felt as though the secrets of life, the wisdom of our existence, were being unveiled. Utterly captivated by this knowledge, I found myself drawn to the forest, yearning for contact. Together with my girlfriend, I embarked on a journey of hugging one of the majestic birches, the very first tree that called out to us. At the beginning, we were uncertain about how to establish a connection, so we simply cuddled up next to the tree and sat beside it. As time went on, we started sensing the tree's energy more intensely, understanding its intentions, and our contact became increasingly conscious. Trust in our experiences played a vital role in deepening our connection with the trees. Roughly a year ago, I had the opportunity to attend workshops led by 2 individuals in my country who teach this unique form of communication. The experience I had during those workshops was on an entirely different level, elevating my contact with trees to a newfound depth. However, what struck me as unprecedented occurred when the trees themselves approached me, urging me to lend my support and write this text, addressing it to you. This was the entirety of the novel experience for me. The trees are incredibly eager to bring people back to nature, to initiate conversations and collabs. Allow me to begin from the start, about a month ago, when for an unknown reason at the time I started watching YouTube videos showcasing the breathtaking beauty of nature in the United States, particularly its national parks. I was irresistibly drawn to these videos, finding myself spending hours each day reveling in the splendor of nature spread across the entire continent. An indescribable yearning for these places, for an encounter with the local nature, enveloped me. But why? I had never been to those lands, not in this lifetime. But life's taught me everything happens for a reason, and that everything carries a purpose and guides us towards something greater. It was then that I realized my longing was not mine alone. It was the earth's longing, nature's longing, and the trees' longing. A longing for us distant souls living in a slumber, ensnared in an illusion of systematic life, oblivious to our life's true identities and the reasons behind our presence. And that's where the story post begins. As I mentioned before, in Poland, there are 2 individuals who teach the art of communicating with trees, Sebastian Zermancha and Veronika Dabrowska. I want to emphasize Veronika's work. She's written a comprehensive book on the subject called Talking to Trees. 2 volumes of her book have already been published, and Sebastian has also had the privilege of witnessing the publication of his own book. While these publications are currently available only in Polish, Veronica has recently translated the first volume of her textbook into English, and it's scheduled for publication next spring. Today, on behalf of Veronica, I'd like to offer you excerpts from her book, which you can download through the link provided below. This is the task that the forest entrusted me with during one of my walks about a week ago. During that time, an overwhelming desire to write this post overcame me, along with an urge to contact Veronica and request her book. Coincidentally, a message from the trees themselves began to take shape within me, a message intended for you. Though it's still challenging for me to share this knowledge with the world, the compulsion to do so was too strong to ignore. So I'm writing. In the midst of it all, an almost century-old oak tree named Helion, situated near me, insisted on not being left out. Thank you, dear brother. So without further ado, I present you the words of the trees that they wish to convey, along with a message from Veronica regarding the language. The trees harbor a profound love for humans, viewing us as their brothers and sisters. They ardently desire to live consciously alongside us, urging us to awaken and return to nature. Their message emphasizes the significance of what they are about to convey and invites us to explore the depths of their words. Call. You are conscious because you were born by conscious. You are nature because you were born by nature. You are the earth because you were born from the earth. Everything is conscious because everything is consciousness. Everything is connected because everything is one. Everything contains a spirit within. Feel its call and return to where you came from. We perceive your thoughts. We hear your words. Come to us, for we beckon you, our comrades of experience. We need each other more than ever. If reading our words evokes a longing for the forest, a desire to reconnect, don't hesitate. Follow the voice of your heart. We await your arrival to remind you of your connection with the source. We await to heal you. We await to guide you out of the illusion. Open yourself to coexistence, and this will pave the way to cessation of what you call suffering. Allow me to add a few more insights to their message. Firstly, trees possess emotions akin to humans. They experience feelings and possess consciousness, actively communicating with each other and the world around them. They possess a keen observational nature for those who harbor doubts regarding trees as conscious beings. I recommend exploring the scientific research presented by Peter Wollenben's illuminating book, The Secret Life of Trees. It's truly a wonderful read. Regarding the act of communication itself, if anyone's hearing this and feel an urge to establish contact with trees, the process is quite simple. Merely venture into the forest and explore the area where trees thrive. Embark on your walk with the intention of making contact. The tree that desires this connection will call out to you, capturing your attention and guiding you toward it. At times, you may even sense that a particular tree stands out from the rest, as if it's appearing before you. It's an unmistakable feeling, trust me. Such a tree may rustle its leaves, signaling its invitation, especially when the air is still and no other tree exhibits such behavior. The tree might summon birds to deliver its call. Once you become familiar with its experience, it will grow increasingly fascinating over time. However, it's essential to understand that immediate contact may not occur upon expressing your intention. Sometimes it may take several walks before that particular tree materializes within your space. Once you encounter such a tree, shift your consciousness to the space within your heart and open yourself to the sensation. Feel the energy emanating from the tree. You can either embrace the tree or sit beneath it. Leaning against its sturdy trunk, follow your intuition. Do not expect grandiose outcomes from these encounters, mind you. While they undoubtedly possess a magical quality, they are also ordinary and natural, akin to any other activity in your life. In due course, they'll become part of your routine, though. While you remain in the tree's presence, observe what manifests within your inner space, your thoughts and emotions. Through these channels, trees can communicate with us. Often these intentions are subtle and demand attentive receptivity to grasp their essence. What we think or feel in the presence of a tree may be a message from it. Frequently, you may experience a profound sense of peace, which over time can evolve into a deep-rooted understanding. Not every encounter will result in verbal communication, but trees will invariably work with you, always. They possess the ability to purify your energy field, leaving you with a serene sense of stillness. Some individuals may find themselves shedding tears under a tree, while others might experience ecstasy or profound joy. It's highly individualized. Furthermore, it's crucial to pose questions if you feel inclined to do so. The answers may arrive instantaneously or in due time, assuming various forms. Place your trust in the responses that come to you. Share your personal stories, your life, and your challenges with the tree. Such exchanges strengthen the bonds of communication. The tree may offer solutions to your problems, either immediately or a point later, maybe. Naturally, more intense or mystical experiences can occur, such as entering a theta state of consciousness, accompanied by visions and messages. Personally, I've encountered such extraordinary occurrences only a few times, but it's essential to acknowledge that each individual's experience may differ significantly. Over time, new avenues for experiencing this form of communication may unveil themselves. The encounters that Sebastian and Veronica often extend beyond my comprehension. Remember, communication with trees is a skill innate to all of us. Yet, due to our forgetfulness, we must relearn it, just as we would any other language. The key lies in our openness, our readiness for internal contact. The more prepared you are, the quicker this connection will manifest. Engaging in group activities can intensify the experience, amplifying the communication. Lastly, trust the voice of your heart. It serves as your ultimate guide. Follow its lead, embracing what you feel, and external navigation will become superfluous. Trust your inner intuition. Do you feel? And you will no longer require any external compass. With these parting words, I thank you and implore you to reunite with nature. Below, you'll find a message from the author herself, talking to trees. The trees are creatures that carry within them the memory of Earth's dawn, the time when our planet was created. They possess the source codes from which Earth emerged, as well as the memory of the fundamental matrix. Conversing with a tree is a simple act that necessitates a shift in our awareness, allowing us to acknowledge that beings other than humans possess consciousness and communicate. Cosmic physis and the understanding of the elements form the basis for accurate communication. The material manifestation of our world is a frozen structure, vibrating at the level of a human brain's beta waves, which serves as a transmitting and receiving antenna. The heart, specifically the third ventricle, functions as the central management point for living beings, a place that defies measurement, radiating temperatures in the thousands of degrees, and generating a potent electromagnetic field known as the inner sun. Every living creature possesses this point, which houses the being's consciousness, memory, and physical form, manifesting as a hologram within a particular reality. Trees, unlike humans, possess specialized physical bodies tailored to their unique purpose. Apart from the holographic structure of matter, all that exists are creatures and pliable dark matter from which everything emerges. Humans create at the level of beta waves, while communication with trees occurs as the delta theta wave frequency, where plasma threads connect beings. The stronger the electromagnetic field of the inner sun, the more these threads multiply and grow resilient. Through these plasma threads, The trees transfer information to the planet's core. These threads extend beyond Earth, reaching other planets and stars, thus contributing to the evolution of our universe. Communication with trees is a channel that allows us to access the primary cosmic codes, enabling the attainment of knowledge regarding the creation of Earth and the evolution of life on our planet. However, it's essential to approach these creatures with respect, recognizing their significance in the cosmos. Veronica Dabrowska.